Thank you very much for being here today. We have a numerous amount of speakers today that will be talking on a numerous variety of presentations. Here at Dr. Lee's summer camp, we've been practicing our presentations, and thanks to Mr. Snyder, who's been helping us. So first up, we have Roki Harpanelli. He's a rising 8th grader at Captain John Middle School, and he'll be informing us on the moon. So let's welcome Roki.
Thank you all for being here today. Now, sometimes I ask my friends this question: how many things have they used on that day? And the most I've ever gotten was maybe 3 or maybe 4. Now that may sound like a whole lot today, but it really isn't, because we use things, but we don't know that we use them, because it's so much part of our daily lives. Like, we turn on the light, we don't know that we use it. We go on the computer, we don't know that we use it, because we use these almost every day, and it becomes a part of our routine. And because of this, sadly, people begin to not understand the real importance of the light or the computer. Now, most predominant of these, in my opinion, is the moon. Some people may say that the moon is just a glowing ball in the sky, or some may say that the moon has no purpose whatsoever. But to me, I feel that the moon has a variety of importances, and I would like to explain them today. Now, before I begin on that, I would like to explain how the moon was formed. Now, there are many different theories of how the moon was formed, but I'd like to talk about two of the most common ways the moon could have been formed. So, the first way that the moon could have been formed, so say that this is the Earth, and then one way that the moon could have been formed is that some large asteroid or other celestial object might have slammed into Earth, and then that would have caused part of it to break off, and that became the moon today. And another way how the moon could have been formed is that it could have been a random object floating throughout the universe, and it somehow got into the solar system and got caught in Earth's orbit. So that might be the moon that we have today. But those are just two of the many theories of how the moon could have been formed. Now, I believe that the moon has a variety of importances, and I would like to explain my reasons. The first reason why the moon is important is because of the tides. Now, there are 2 types of tides: the high tide and the low tide. I would like to explain what these are in detail. So, this is the high tide. So, let's say that this is a beach, and this is the shore. This is the water. Now, the high tide, it causes water to come up farther along the shoreline than normal, and this can destroy your wonderful sandcastle, which you've spent so hard to build. So yeah, don't build a sandcastle near the shoreline during a high tide. Now, the low tide is when the water comes, then it pulls part of the shoreline out to the ocean. Now, the reason why it's dangerous to stay in the water during a low tide is because it can pull you into the water, and you may experience a riptide, which is when the water pulls you down into the bottom of the ocean and keeps you there for about a minute, and because of that, you'll drown and die. So that's why you never stand in the water during a low tide. Now, the reason that tides are so useful to us is because it can help boats get out to sea during a low tide, and it can help boats get back to shore during a high tide. It makes it easier. And the tides are also useful for many different aqua sports, such as boogie boarding or surfing. Now, the next reason why the moon is important to us is because we use it to tell time. Now, most of us use the Gregorian calendar, which is based on the solar year. Now, contrary to popular belief, the solar year is not 365 days exactly. It is 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and about 20 seconds. Now, we could round it down to 365 days and just ignore that leftover time, but it wouldn't just go away as we would think. It would be lost, and after a few days, maybe a few weeks, then the whole time would begin to add up, and because of that, the calendar would be thrown out of whack. The seasons wouldn't match up with the days, and we would fall into utter chaos if that happened. Now, the Gregorian calendar is still a little bit more accurate, but still isn't accurate enough, because even though it considers a leap year every 4 years, and it adds an extra day, there's still a little bit of extra time that's get lost, and after more than 3,000 years, we would have to experience this again. However, the lunar calendar doesn't have to deal with this problem because it's based on the lunar cycle, which is approximately 28.5 days every month. Now, the reason it's so easier to keep track of time is because with a solar year, you have to keep track of two variables, the rotations of the Earth and the rotations of the Sun. It makes it very complicated to tell time this way, but with the lunar calendar, you only have to keep track of the Earth's rotation. It makes it a whole lot easier to tell time. And many Chinese cultures and many Hebrew calendars use the moon to tell time and calculate the dates of religious festivals. And finally, the reason why the moon is important is because of lunar ice. Now, NASA is now theorizing that there may be lunar ice on the moon. Now, you may ask why this is important. Well, think about it this. Say we have a new Apollo mission. Say we have like a new Apollo mission to go up to the moon for about 2 weeks. Think about how many gallons of water we'd have to bring up. It would cost a lot of money, it would weigh the fuel, it would weigh the spaceship down, and it wouldn't be very effective. If we can find lunar ice on the moon, and NASA is saying there is a good chance that we will, then we won't have to bring our own water because there might be more than enough water to sustain our missions on the moon. Now, because of this, I'm here to say that we shouldn't take things for granted. We shouldn't take light bulbs for granted because if we didn't have them, we would have candles which are much more dangerous. If we didn't have chairs, we would have to sit on the floor, which is pretty painful over a long period of time. If we didn't have computers, we wouldn't be able to send a simple message in a few minutes. We'd have to either call or use the telegraph. So in conclusion, we shouldn't take things for granted, and we should really appreciate how important it is. And for the moon is no exception. Thank you all for being here today.
Next, I'd like to welcome Kathy Young. She's a rising 7th grader at Roberto Clemente Middle School, and she'll be informing us on foot binding. Let's give a warm welcome to Kathy.
Thank you for having me. We've all heard of crazy beauty traditions, but one in China was the most crazy of all. Foot binding started in China very early on because small feet were considered fashionable and represented a high social class. With small feet, you could also marry into a wealthy family. This trend was started by a former empress. So the foot binding process was started around when a girl was around the age of 6 because then their foot bones were softer and they were easier to break. They would use bandages to wrap the foot in the desired shape, and after a few years, the finished result would be about 4 inches. It was very difficult to walk, you couldn't run, and it was really hard to balance. Eventually, people noticed this unnecessary and really cruel practice. In 1912, the Chinese government banned foot binding. Finally, young girls would not have to suffer anymore. In conclusion, sometimes beauty is not worth the pain. As in China, the beauty of having small feet was not worth it. Thank you.
Our next presentation will be informing us about the flute. Our presenter attends Rachel Carson Middle School and will be a 7th grader in the fall. Please give a warm welcome to Kathy Lee.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor. Let me describe an instrument. It is sleek, yet complex, tiny, with a bold sound. The sound can waver, blast, shriek, and still sound whole. It looks simple, with only holes and keys, but wind changes it all. Most are metal, but some are silver and gold. Do you have a guess? Here is one more hint. This instrument is played in the band, and the instrument players sit in the front row. This is the instrument I'm talking about. It is the flute. The flute is made of a long, narrow metal tube with holes. Keys cover the holes that change the pitch when pressed. There are 3 main parts of the flute: the head joint, the body joint, and the foot joint. There are extra keys for trills. To work the flute, you blow into the mouthpiece at the right angle. Changing your lips can change the tone or dynamic. There are different fingerings for different notes, and changing the air changes the pitch. This might all sound easy, but it is much harder to do. It is all multitasking. You place your fingers, then put your mouth in the right position, Then you blow with enough air. This is just for one note. But done right, it sounds perfect and will make everything worth it. Now you understand how much more about the flute. And next time you hear the flawless sound of the flute, remember how complex it is to play a single note. But with practice, it is all possible. Thank you for being a great audience.
Wow, that was a great speech. I learned a lot about how the flute works and how it is extraordinary. Next up, we have Kevin Liu. He's a rising 8th grader at Roberto Clemente Middle School, and he'll be informing us on wolves. Let's welcome Kevin.
Thank you all for coming today. We all have our favorite animal. My favorite animal is the wolf. The wolf has been on and off the endangered species list for a very long time now. The population went down due to hunters who hunted them for fur and for protection of livestock. Wolves' population was restored with the introduction of them into the Yellowstone National Park in the 1970s. Wolf males are generally bigger than the females, and they hunt up to 30 miles per hour. They usually hunt elk, moose, caribou, and bison. Thank you for coming.